Hey now, oh, the sun just came out, or I came behind a tree, so I'm a little bright here. So, hey, I'm Dave, here to talk about, as you probably know, Dave's Picks Volume 34, ostensibly a seaside chat, but as many of you are in the same boat as I am, kind of self-isolating, quarantining, so not really able to leave and go down to the seaside, to the beach where I usually shoot this. The other problem is, well, it's not a problem. Is that there's a lot of people down there. As you know, you see people walking around when I shoot those things, and I just couldn't, I didn't want to be around too many people when I shoot this, so I'm shooting it in a kind of quieter space, which is kind of near the sea, but it's not really at the sea, so see near chat. So Dave's Picks 34, available now. They tend to sell out pretty quickly, as you probably know, so maybe put this on pause if you're interested in it, and go check it out, or just watch this and then decide if you want it after. I don't know. We'll put up some songs too, of course, but this is our second one of the year. Release date, I guess, is around May 1st, and this is a show that I've had in my tape collection for many, many years. I should have busted out my cassettes. I still have my cassette collection, hundreds and hundreds of cassettes, hundreds, as many as anyone had back in the day. It's what we did. We accumulated cassettes, and it was a show I was always really high on, and probably should have come out quite some time ago as a release. A portion of it was released in 1999, 21 years ago, as part of the So Many Roads box set. That was, of course, the big second set jam. Also, the Let It Rock was released as part of Mars Hotel, but the rest of the show really tells the story of the Dead at a very important time in their touring career. I mean, it's a magnificent show start to finish. The highlights, as we always talk about, when we pick a show for release, we're always looking for a few central things. One is that overall it's a wonderful show. It's top-notch, A+ Grateful Dead. And secondly is that we always want to make sure there are several major highlights, not just kind of like, oh, that was kind of a really good version of that, but like really major highlights, kind of the anchors of what makes that a kind of those great moments. But overall, it's got to be a great show as well, and this one certainly fits that criteria. So the show, in case you hadn't seen it yet, is June 23rd, 1974 in Miami at the Jai Alai Fronton, which is the weirdest sounding arena and it is a venue, and it is a very weird venue. Jai Alai is a sport. You can look it up. I'm sure there's ways to describe it. Kind of reminds me a little bit of squash, but instead of a racket, you have a scoop that you scoop the ball up, and then you whip it out of the scoop and against a wall, and then it bounces, and then your opponent grabs it and does the same thing. So kind of like a cross between lacrosse and squash and medieval death sports. I mean, it's pretty violent, only because that ball is extremely hard and it moves extremely quickly. And the way the venues, the fronton, the way that they're structured is that you would have kind of a seating area and then a stage, and the stage would be where they'd play. It wasn't really a stage, it was a court. And then they would play, so if you're watching it, looking down, right, they're playing against a wall here, so they're just like squash. And then there'll be a big glass partition here because that ball goes whipping around. And so the glass wall is like the fourth wall in cinema, which is kind of part of the show. Ball could bounce against that. It was also protect the spectators, because that ball is, I've heard it's really hard and really fast. So June 23rd, 1974. There's a street cleaning truck going by, so it's going to get pretty loud right now. You're either going to get waves or wind or street cleaning trucks. Always something with me, right? And there it goes. And so, Wall of Sound tour, June 23rd, 1974. By this point, the Dead had done a small tour, the May tour, of course, the one that began in, they did the March show at Cow Palace, then the May tour from May 12th in Reno through May 25th in Santa Barbara. A few of those were released in the Pacific Northwest box set. And then in June, they played the show at the Oakland Stadium. It was all Wall of Sound stuff. And then the couple of shows in Des Moines and Louisville. in June 16th and 18th. Then they played Atlanta, and then 2 nights in Miami. And then this tour would continue with shows in Springfield and Providence and Boston. You might know those from Dick's Picks Volume. How dirty is the street? Like, do we really need a street cleaner? Apparently so. And so June 23rd, the second night in Miami. The first night I think is really good. If you got the bonus disc, if you subscribe to the Dave's Picks series, you will be getting the bonus disc, which is music from the first night. Pretty much all of the big 1974 songs they didn't play on the second night, including Playing in the Band, a nice half-hour version of that, China Rider. But that's part of the bonus disc. So if you subscribed, you're covered. You don't have to order this because it'll come to you anyway, including the bonus. But if you didn't subscribe but you still want this one, the June 23rd show in its entirety, a wonderful show. The highlights, the first set. I don't know if you can hear this. I'm sure you can. This is a loud truck. I can't do anything about it, obviously. So it's a show, the first set, I'll go through a few of the highlights, but there's a lot, so I kind of don't know where to start, only because this thing, it just keeps driving up and down my street, as though it knows I'm shooting a video for you. Can't catch a break, can we? There it goes. Show opens, bit of a rarity, with Ramble on Rose. And other highlights, it goes into, after that, a very powerful, very good Black-Throated Wind, one of my favorite songs from this era. So we get this unbelievable, really good two-for opener of Ramble on Rose and Black-Throated Wind. And other big highlights of this set, to me, include a great half-step, a terrific Cumberland Blues, the first and only Grateful Dead version of Let It Rock, a Chuck Berry song. And it's interesting because they play it so darn well. I'm surprised it didn't stay in the repertoire. It would have given Jerry a nice kind of Chuck Berry rocker to sing, and it gave the band something really interesting. It's only about 3.5 minutes, but it's really terrific. So it's too bad it didn't stay in, but I think that's what makes it even more interesting that it didn't. It's a very cool, unique version. So we get Let It Rock. And other big highlights for me in this set are towards the end of the set. The kind of trio of songs that end it. We get, in my opinion, it is, I'm not going to say best, I don't use phrases like that, but I will say it is my favorite version of To Lay Me Down. And I feel that vocally, Jerry's completely committed, 100% present with it. And instrumentally, just really wonderful as well. Really terrific, To Lay Me Down. Then we get kind of what you'd expect from a Weather Report suite in the Wall of Sound era. Spectacular. They just blow the roof off the place. And then it falls into China Doll. Really gorgeous China Doll. And then in the... it's a truck again. And then in the second set, well no, another important thing about this show, Sea Stones. Love it or don't, I do, I love it. This is the first ever Grateful Dead performance of Sea Stones. I shouldn't say Grateful Dead performance. The first ever performance of Sea Stones, which featured Phil Lesh and Ned Lagan as kind of the intermission interlude at Grateful Dead shows in 1974, starting with this one. This is the first Sea Stones. So we've included that on here, which we're very happy with. And it's a good one because it gets, it shows where Sea Stones would go. It's got some really loud drone moments, it's got a little melodic stuff. It's really some great sounds. And then the second set proper begins with a jam, kind of a very unique jam, which I love when the Dead kind of do impromptu jams like this, into Ship of Fools, a brand new song as part of Mars Hotel, which was being released in June of 1974, so the brand new album. They open the second set with this gorgeous version of Ship of Fools after this impromptu jam that sags into Ship of Fools, and I love that. It's a very unique 1974 moment. And then we get a beautiful Big River, a great Black Peter, and this is when Black Peter could just appear in the set list, really anywhere. First set, second set, just a standalone Black Peter, really gorgeous. And the second set jam, the aforementioned one that was released on the So Many Roads box, again, another very unique 1974 moment where we get a Dark Star, an instrumental Dark Star. They don't sing it, but they certainly do play the heck out of it. And I can only imagine the Wall of Sound in a venue like this. Take a look at it online. You can look up pictures of the High Life Fronton and just see how small and intimate it would have been to hear the Wall of Sound playing Dark Star through this. And then after Dark Star, they go into a great Spanish jam, and then it kind of turns into this, and there's quite a few jams like this, although they're all completely unique from 1974. It's like a bouncing, melodic, created right there on the spot, very jazzy jam that falls into another of the big songs from Mars Hotel, U.S. Blues. So by this point we've heard China Doll and Ship of Fools from Mars Hotel. We get this wonderful U.S. Blues. And then after that they kind of rock it out with a few big kind of classics. Last couple songs include Uncle John's Band, and Casey Jones is an encore. There's one more Saturday night in there. It's a really hot show, start to finish. And sound quality, the Wall of Sound era I find to be unparalleled in terms of the sound. I love the sound that Kid was mixing for the live tapes. Some of my favorite live releases by the Dead, music aside, but in terms of sound quality, are up there with the Kids recordings from '74. So much good stuff, and they're so distinct. You got Bear's recordings in '69, '70, and then the '72 sound, the '73, '74, and then you got Betty's recordings in '76 to '78. So there's a lot of distinct, different recordings. I love these Wall of Sound recordings. So again, check it out. This is Dave's Picks, volume 34. Hard to believe we're at number 34 already. I was thinking of Dick's Picks 34 recently, which is Rochester, November 5th of 1977. So it's interesting to kind of view that we've done 34 of these things now, and no end in sight. We certainly are planning 35 and 36, and beginning to put some thought into 37, which would be the first one of 2021. But I'm finding, as I'm sure many of you are, two things about listening to music right now in the circumstances we're all kind of living under, is that I have a lot more time to listen to music, so I am listening to a lot more music. Being in quarantine, not really being around people as much at all, period. So I'm listening to a lot more. And I also am taking greater solace in listening to music. So I'm kind of getting the two-pronged thing of hearing a lot more music and taking more from it. So this is a show that hopefully you'll be able to get your hands on soon, because it's really, I mean, it's something to kind of keep our minds on something different from everything else that's going on. And it sounds really good. It's a great show. Again, it's one of those ones that probably should have come out a long time ago. And I say that a lot. I know I do. But generally, we're still working on shows, and I think, I hate to say the phrase no end in sight, but I don't see any end at the quality and the pace that we release things, and the quality of which we release these shows, the performance quality and sound quality. There's still a lot left in the vault, and that's why we keep putting things out that I'm like, wow, this is another, I think, A+ Grateful Dead performance. So we've got a really cool one coming up for number 35. That one is just, well, it's in the can pretty much. We're starting to work on 36 as well. Got some good ideas on that. But 35 is pretty much done, so we'll announce that in probably July, I guess. But for now, Dave's Picks 34. Check it out at dead.net. It'll sell out pretty quickly. They sell out pretty soon. I'm sorry this isn't Seaside, but as you can imagine, many of us aren't able to get out due to quarantine, and also there's a lot of people around, so I just figured this was the best way to keep the outdoor vibe going and yet stay socially isolated. So thank you for listening. Dave's Picks 34. It's a really good show. Miami, 1974, Wall of Sound, the first ever Sea Stones, magnificent Dark Star, Spanish Jam, U.S. Blues, wonderful To Lay Me Down, Weather Report, Sweet China Doll, on and on. There's some really, really good music happening on this one. I wouldn't miss out on this one. I mean, I don't miss out on any of them, because I subscribe, and I hope you do too. Thank you for checking this out, and we will see you sometime soon. We'll have more announcements coming up for other releases coming up later in the year. We've got a few good things up our proverbial sleeves and collective sleeves. It's been a pleasure. Thank you for, as I sit in my Muskoka chair. Incidentally, this is a chair. It's made of wood, and every year around this time in mid-April, I kind of sand it down and paint it again. So it's got many coats of this. It's called Fire Truck Red. And it's got many coats of it on there, and I paint it, so I'm actually going to be doing that. Now that the weather's good, I'll be painting it today or tomorrow. So this chair, if we do any more of these kind of social distancing, quarantine isolation, seaside chats, they will be probably in this chair. Might even look more red than it does right now. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for coming along for the ride with the Dave's Picks. We really do appreciate it, and as we're all listening to it, we'll be, oh, a little inchworm right here. Look at that little tiny thing. We'll be here. So thank you for joining us, and we'll see you around for sure.